First of all, how many of you here try to eat pretty well? And how many of you here try to eat pretty well on a regular basis? And how many of you here exercise? And how many of you here exercise on a pretty regular basis? Now, how many of you here meditate? And how many of you here meditate twice a day? That's why I'm talking. That's exactly why I'm talking. Because, and what I'm going to do, the scenario we're going to do is, I'm going to talk about meditation in general. Nobody really knows what meditation is. Well, I jog or I do this, that's meditation. It's a big word. It's like saying I eat food or I take medicine. I meditate. So we're going to define what science tells us about meditation. It turns out there's 3 basic types of meditation. So we're going to do that. But before that, I want to talk about why, at the end of this few days and at the end of my talk, the notion of meditating regularly, I want to move it to the forefront. Because we live in an epidemic of stress. Toxic stress, trauma, little kids 10 years old coming to school, some with the same symptoms of post-traumatic stress as veterans. I don't sort of have to go through what stress does, but it destroys life. I mean, I've been teaching meditation for 45 years, and it's the last year or 2 years, some tipping point tipped. Meditation was pretty strange, and now doctors recommend it. It's at hospitals. We do programs in businesses. I'm working with the National Basketball Association, with the Major League Baseball. Probably I should work with the Rangers and the Astros, but that's another story. Something happened. Something tipped. And there's 3 reasons, I think. The problem with stress, as I just said, we now know how destructive it is. We used to think, first of all, when I was a kid, we didn't even think of stress. I mean, I went and talked to some 2nd graders, and I said, just recently, I said, how many of you kids feel stressed? Every hand went up. Stress. 2nd graders. And they can't sleep, and they feel anxious, and they can't digest their food. I'm thinking, oh my God. And when I was young, stress, you just, buck up. Buck up, I said. Buck up. Like be tough. It's not a big deal. Just, but now, it's killing us. It shortens our aging. It gives us migraines. It gives us, sleep deprivation. It gives us high blood pressure. It fuels cancer. You've heard it all. It's like I don't have to spend time on that. So the problem of stress, I think, sometimes people say, well, is it more stress now than it ever was before? And I think, yeah. I think it's 24/7 input, right? Kids never stop. It's just 24/7. There's nowhere you can go away. I made a phone call to my nephew who was hiking in Mongolia, and I got a clear message to him. So you can't get away from Uncle Bob. You can't get away. So there is this stress, and second of the 3 reasons, modern medicine has nothing for us. Not really. There's no magic pill that we can take that can prevent stress or trauma. I mean, if we had that, we'd give it to the men and women who are going off in harm's way. There's nothing. And there's no magic pill that we can take to cure it. We certainly mask it. 6 glasses of wine, 16 cups of coffee, and we manage it, Ambien, Xanax, antihypertensive medications, which we need, but we're not getting to the core. This is an epidemic, and it ain't getting any better. Anybody here ever feel stressed? Yeah. Even in Austin? I'm coming from New York. I have to tell you a quick story. I was coming from New York, and I sat down there was a wedding, and I was in Iowa. And I sat down at this table. No one was at the table at this afterwards at a wedding. And there was a woman sitting at the table across from me. I sat down. She looked up. She said, "Are you from New York?" Now, I had not said a word. I went, it was like a... So, The problem is worse than ever, and the third reason why there's so much interest and the misunderstandings of meditation is stripped away, one reason: science. One reason: science. There is so much research now on the effects of different meditations, and they have different outcomes, and I'm going to talk about that in a moment. So much evidence that it is incontrovertible. And I think it's just now a matter of time. We're working with insurance companies, we're working with health insurance providers and companies to make this available to employees, to people. It'll save a ton of money and it'll improve the quality of life. So, meditation. What is it? First of all, Jennifer Ashton, who I taught to meditate, and she's going to be here tomorrow speaking. She spoke at a conference we gave on meditation, and she said, on Transcendental Meditation, and she said, everything we do for health has been from the neck down. And when we consider meditation, we're talking about something from the neck up. Because do you ever have this experience? You work out, you eat well, and still your mind is racing? You ever have that? Yeah. Still your mind is not set. I mean, you're doing it all, and still. We can feel tense and maybe a massage, but then we're anxious. I mainly work in homeless shelters, in inner city schools, and on VA hospitals. That's where I spend most of my time with the foundation. But in the process of doing that, I get introduced, I don't go after anybody, but I get introduced to well-known people. And I use this particular well-known person because you know her. And I got, Ellen DeGeneres asked me to teach her to meditate. So I asked her why she was interested. And the answer that she gave illustrates, I think, why more and more of us are interested. She said, Bob, I want to maintain permanent connection with the intelligence that runs the universe. And I thought, wow. And she paused and she said, and I can't sleep at night. And in a nutshell, that's us. We all want, no one wants to feel stuck, right? No one wants to feel just in a rut. And you know, I love everything, but it's just, I just in a rut. I'm not growing. I'm not raising my performance. There's no happiness without expansion. So that we want, and we don't want to be stressed. We don't want to stay awake all night. We don't want that. So now we're getting to meditation. So meditation, properly practiced, properly understood and practiced, in one stroke, addresses in a non-pharmacological, non-religious, non-philosophical, a lot of nons in there, way both of those desires. And this is why so much interest is in meditation, because it is proving to be more effective in reducing high blood pressure and stress-related disorders. Among veterans, 50% reduction in symptoms of post-traumatic stress. And right now, all we do is give our veterans a bunch of pills. So what is meditation? I'm going to use an analogy. It's like saying, what is food? So what are the different types of meditation? Is this clear so far? Okay. So no, Bob, start over. How can we understand meditation? I like to use an analogy. You're on a little boat, and you're on the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. And all of a sudden, you get these giant waves, 30, 40-foot high swells. And you could naturally think the whole ocean is exploding. The whole ocean is and that's not those tidal waves. That's pretty nice. The whole ocean is in upheaval. So don't look at that. That's not a graphic. It's just pretty. So the whole ocean, you can look if you want. Who am I to say? So the whole ocean is in upheaval. Is the whole ocean in upheaval? No. If you could somehow do a cross-section of that ocean, what would you find? That you've got these little itty, relatively speaking, little itty bitty 30-foot waves, and the ocean in reality is a mile deep. In reality. This is natural, and this is equally natural. Silent, quiet. So active on the surface, silent at its depth. Pretty darn silent at its depth. That's an analogy to the mind. The surface of our mind, I like to call the gotta mind. I gotta do this, and I gotta do that, and I gotta call him, and I gotta call her, and I gotta make a list, and I gotta find the list, and I gotta make a new list. Then I gotta slow down, then I gotta get going, and then I gotta get to sleep, and then I gotta get up. Anybody? Got that? Yeah. Gotta mind. It doesn't stop. We go on vacation. If we can go for 2 weeks, the first week we're just sort of decompressing, checking emails, oh my God, I didn't get my bill from Verizon. It's like we're so nervous about everything. So that is the gotta mind. It is a natural human desire. Every one of us. Instinct. Boy, I'd like to have some inner calm. Boy, I'd like to have some inner peace, some inner clarity, some inner ease, some inner happiness. I'm not talking about the happiness that comes and goes out there, but just a happiness that from just kind of feeling good about myself. Right? So the question is there such a thing as an inner? And if so, how do we get there? And here comes the discussion on 3 types of meditations. Because for a very, 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 very long time, it was assumed by science that all meditations were basically the same. That it really didn't matter what you did, you were meditating. So you could close your eyes and you could do a guide. How many people here have tried guided meditations? You could do a guided meditation. Or you could close your eyes and you could follow your breath. Or you could be in church or synagogue, and there's a time for silent meditation. Or jogging, or swimming. It's all pretty much the same. And then about 10 years ago, brain research kicked in. And that's been a game changer. And brain researchers have now identified, and this is new information for you, relatively. Brain researchers have now identified 3 basic types of legitimate meditation. Legitimate meditation. There's a lot of crazy stuff out there. Just like there's a lot of crazy diets, there's a lot of crazy healers, there's a lot of crazy whatever. So you really have to but 3 basic types of legitimate meditation. The first, and this won't be, I actually wanted to show some charts, and Lori said, no, don't show charts. Friday night, nobody wants to see charts, so just imagine. First type of meditation is focused attention. Focused attention. Some of you may have done this before. It's a concentration form of meditation. You go to a yoga class, and at the end of yoga class, the teacher said, okay, now clear your mind of thoughts. I always love that one. Right. And then peace in the Middle East. Yeah. I'll clear my mind of thoughts, and then I'll take care of the Middle East. But that's one, or you concentrate. There's a meditation called, but it's legitimate, vipassana, which is you are focused on loving kindness. Or it's a concentration, a Zen meditation, where you're concentrating on, but it's concentration. They call this the monkey mind, and you're trying to clear your mind of thoughts. And that meditation enlivens or activates what they call gamma brain waves. Right here, left prefrontal cortex, and that meditation, that gamma brain waves, 20 to 50 cycles per second, concentration. When your child is concentrating on a math problem, or you're going to see some activation in that area. It is a wonderful tool for learning to concentrate in life. Cut through the noise. Second type of meditation. Open monitoring. Mindfulness. How many people here have done mindfulness? Mindfulness meditation, kind of popular. That in the analogy I should say, focused attention is like trying to stop, the first one was like trying to stop waves on the surface of the ocean. Open monitoring or mindfulness is dispassionately just disengaging, and this is how you get calm. You just observe your thoughts, or you observe your breath, or you observe the silence. There's a lot, you sit quietly, and you just take 5 minutes and just observe, because we're just going to be fully present. And that, in that analogy, is like watching those waves rise and fall. Even if they're anxious waves, even if they're thoughts, even if they're anxious thoughts, even if they're thoughts about a boyfriend, and every time you, mindfulness allows us to have that thought and not go, or anything. It just step back, and it creates what's called theta brain waves. And that's, you don't have to remember this, I won't quiz you, but that's 5 to 7 cycles per second. That's an onset of dream, and it's also just sitting quiet, just getting ready to act. It's just, and mindfulness, while having many purposes, is a wonderful coping tool. So in the beginning, in the middle of the day, if things get tense at the office, or if they get tense with the kids, which I know never happens, it's tense with the kids. Who did the ha? Gets tense with the kids, you just take 2 minutes, do some breathing exercise, and you just calm yourself. And then you enter the fray. And here's the third type. And the third type is called self-transcending. Now, I should say I have learned all 3 types. I teach the last one, Transcendental Meditation. I teach it, but I value all 3 for different reasons, because they have different outcomes. So self-transcending or transcendental meditation is a technique that you're not trying to stop the waves, and you're not trying to just watch those anxious thoughts dispassionately. You're actually allowing the excited, agitated, thinking mind to just settle down to quieter levels of thought towards that calm, settled state that exists within hypothetically exists within every one of us. And when the mind settles down in the most fluid, easy, natural way, your body gains a state of rest, according to research, deeper than the deepest part of deep sleep in 20 minutes. And there is a hormone. Anybody heard of the cortisol? Cortisol is a hormone. We need cortisol to live, but when we have high levels of cortisol, it's for activity. High levels of cortisol for too long, adrenal burnout. It's secreted by the adrenal glands on the adrenals on the kidneys, and everybody has too much. Pretty much everybody has too much cortisol. Cortisol fuels sleep deprivation, migraine headaches, depression, memory loss. Not a good thing. We all have way too much cortisol. At the end of a good night's sleep, cortisol levels naturally drop about 10%. In 20 minutes of this self-transcending, cortisol levels drop 30 to 40% every time. Now, I have been a big advocate. For a long time, people used to say to me, well, I do mindfulness, so I don't want to do vipassana. Or I do transcendental meditation, and I don't want to do mindfulness. And I always thought, you're a wonderful person, but that's not big thinking. In a toolbox to handle stresses and pressures of the day, there's more than one tool. There's tools. And I'm a big advocate of equipping children, and I'm going to show you a video in just a moment, equipping children and us as adults with the tools that we need to find silence and calm that no longer exists anywhere in the world. And that calm and silence exists within each of us. I think that, as I said at the beginning, that we're coming to a tipping point where what has been, foreign will now be just part of our lifestyle. Just part of our lifestyle. It has to be. I tell people who tell me that I just don't have the time. Who has the time? Nobody has the time. But what are the options? Is the trajectory that we're on in our life sustainable? Is anything really going to dramatically change? Well, maybe when the election's over, that's going to big help. Stress levels, it's just the noise. But is anything going to really change in the demands and pressures? So my message to you is, learn to meditate. And don't just be happy with, it's like, I'm not going to right now, at the end we're going to do a simple little pulse meditation thing, but I'm not going to do a guided meditation. You can do that. You can go home, you can turn on your computer, your iPhone, and you can download a guided meditation. You do that on your own. I wanted to take the time to impress upon you the essential importance of making this a priority. That when you think of, and someone said to me, yeah, but is it more important than diet and exercise? Of course not. But it's as important, as important. And this is the missing element. If you can drop your cortisol levels by 30 to 40% by practicing this transcendental meditation, and you can learn how to have coping skills in the middle of the day, and you can learn ways to concentrate, why would we not want to have that? And I want to transition now to a video, a little 4-minute video that was on NBC Nightly News a couple of months ago. My foundation, and then we're going to have questions. So, all right? So, the foundation that I run, which is deeply fulfilling for me, because I've been teaching this for, just say, eons, and teaching it, regular folk, like all of us. But when I had the opportunity to start to bring this to veterans and their families who suffer from post-traumatic stress, who nightmare, they can't sleep months, teach this to women and children who are victims of domestic violence, and teach this to inner city school kids. And now I have to tell you, we used to say at-risk kids. All kids are at risk. Even our own kids are at risk for stress levels, pressures, demands. But this has been the most fulfilling 10 years of my life as a teacher. And by way of introduction to this video, I will tell you a very moving story, which is why I'm doing what I'm doing with the foundation. In the school you're going to see, the first of 2 schools, Visitation Valley School in South San Francisco, which is right near the Cow Palace, violent area of the city. What we do is we have quiet time. And the quiet time is the school starts and ends with 10, 12 minutes of quiet. The whole school is quiet. Everybody. But it's part of the school day. 10 minutes, 10, 12 minutes, beginning at the end of the school day. A child volunteers. Child could meditate. A child could do silent sustained reading. A child could nap. But everybody's quiet. And like 90% of the kids want to meditate. So in San Francisco school, to teach kids discipline, they had it set up where if the child had to be couldn't come late for quiet time. You had to be in, when the bell rang, you had to be in your seat. And if you didn't, you had to sit out in the hallway. So I got a call from the teacher. This is a very moving story for me, and this is why I'm passionate about what I'm doing for the last 10 years. The teacher called up and said, I have to tell you a story that happened this morning. Charlene, 11 years old, came bursting in the door, out of breath, 3 minutes late, to sit down. And I said, Charlene, about to say something. And he said, I noticed that she had red paint splattered all over her white dress. And she said, Charlene, you can't come late and you can't wear dirty clothes, or dirty dress. You have to go, you have to change. And she burst out into tears. And it turns out that Charlene was standing next to her uncle at a bus stop, and her uncle was hit by a drive-by shooting. And that was her uncle's blood. And she had one place to go, her school, to meditate. It wasn't safe at home, but her school was safe. So if we could watch this video, and then I'll take your questions.
We send our kids off to school each day so their minds can be filled with knowledge, but clearing the mind, that's the practice one school district is preaching. It's taking time out of the school day for meditation. And by looking inward, these students are finding outward success. The story tonight from NBC's Cynthia McFadden.
At first glance, Visitation Valley School in San Francisco looks like an ordinary, chaotic middle school. But twice a day, something out of the ordinary happens that has changed everything. It is the sound of silence. 8 years ago, in the heart of one of the city's poorest and most violent neighborhoods, the school was spiraling out of control.
There'd be fights here 3 to 5 times a week. The kids see guns on a daily basis. They see all sorts of weaponry. They have that baggage with them.
Desperate, the district tried a pioneering program called Quiet Time.
Ignore the sounds you hear outside, upstairs, in the
The
hallway,
idea, teach students transcendental meditation and give them 2 15-minute periods a day to close their eyes and let go of the stresses in their lives. So did you buy into this at the beginning, or were you a little like, hold it a minute, meditation?
I thought it was a joke. I thought, this is hippie stuff that didn't work in the 70s, so how's it going to work now?
Make sure you switch. Good.
But 4 years later, some startling results made the skeptical coach a true believer.
Good job.
A 79% decrease in suspensions, an increase in attendance to 98%, and a clear rise in academic performance. More than 1,500 students and 170 staffers have now been trained to meditate in 4 of the district's schools, including Burton High, once known as Fight School. This is Burton High today, where meditation has replaced mayhem. There are people who are going to say, hold it a second. You're taking a precious half an hour out of the school day.
You know, I actually was in the same boat, and I was like, there's no way I'm going to steal time from English instruction or math instruction in order to do that.
Instead, he agreed to extend the school day. And now the results are as dramatic as in the middle school. A 75% reduction in suspensions and a move from the bottom of California's academic ladder to the upper middle rungs. School officials say that's because students now feel safe, relaxed, and ready to learn.
It makes you more conscious of your actions.
It brings you down to that calmness.
Before Tobias started meditating, he says he was an angry kid.
I always want to fight everybody for some reason.
You remember?
Yeah.
You see a change in him?
Yeah, tremendously compared to from the 6th grade to now.
You can't change the violence and the stress that happens outside these walls.
I cannot, but I can help our students find ways to deal with the violence, the trauma, and the stress of everyday life.
Tools they can use with their eyes closed. Cynthia McFadden, NBC News, San Francisco.
So I'd like to take questions for about 20 minutes, and then we'll wrap it up. Anybody have any questions? Okay, right behind you.
All right, yeah, I'd like to ask a question. For whatever reason, the same reasons as everybody else, I sleep okay, but I have been told that I should meditate, and it would help me to relax and feel better. And I guess somebody told me what you would have called the focused attention about, you know, breathing and exhaling to a count or whatever. And I'm like, yeah. It just doesn't do it.
Yeah. The thing is there's quickie meditations that you can do, again, and they're fine to do them. Does this sound okay? Okay, they're fine to do them, but for the kind of issues that we deal with, I would really recommend that you do something substantive. If you had MS, you wouldn't just do nothing. You would find a solution, an approach that has a lot of research behind two basic two basic strong courses that are offered with a teacher. One is called Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction, which takes that's taught over about 8 days. And then the other is Transcendental Meditation, and that's about an hour a day over 4 days. And you want a teacher, I think. You can continue to do. If you go back to your room and listen to guided meditation, the more we do, the better. But just know that all meditations are not the same. And they don't, just because a pill or an herb says it does something, doesn't mean it does something, unless there's data to show that it does something. So you really want to be discriminating. We don't have a lot of time. So if we want to take the time to learn something and then have something that can really produce results. So if you're not satisfied with your meditation, don't think, oh, I can't meditate. For me, meditation should be like a flow, effortless, easy, enjoyable. You look forward to it. That's, I think, meditation. And if it's not, keep looking. Keep looking.
I don't understand what transcendental meditation is, though. Like, what do you do?
Okay, good. I will explain. Really? I didn't explain it. Why don't you understand? No. I did. Transcendental meditation, in TM, you're given what's called a sound, a mantra that's used silently. Mantra is a sound. Well, first of all, mantra, they talk about, mantra is just like Obama's mantra is, it's just a term that's used in popular whatever, but in Transcendental Meditation, very important, it's a simple 1 or 2 syllable sound, very soothing, that has no meaning. Because if you had a meaning, you're stuck up on the gotta, gotta, gotta. It's a sound that's been used for over 5,000 years, very long time. It's the oldest continuous tradition of meditation. And you learn with a trained teacher, one-to-one. This is another thing that I like. It's not a mass meditation. It's not taught in a big group or out of a book. It's taught one-to-one with a certified teacher. And that teacher, takes about an hour a day over 4 days, gives you a sound, which you keep to yourself, it's done silently, and teaches you how to use it. So it's almost like a switch. I mean, I teach a 10-year-old child who's never heard of meditation. And in that first session, I think we're all hardwired for it. And I think we've lost access to this, and I think the purpose of meditation throughout time has been to just a way to reliably access. So if you want to learn that, you learn from a certified teacher. There's teachers, you can look up tm.org, and I'm not here to promote just that. I'm here to encourage you to look and find something or many things that you can use as tools. But if you're interested in that, just if you're interested in mindfulness-based stress reduction, go online, tm.org, and see if there's a teacher. But to go back to your point, demand research, and don't let someone say, yeah, meditation does this. Yeah, but does your technique do that? What you're saying do that? Because there's a lot of... Next question. You had a question? Oh, I'm sorry, back there. Oh, yes, the mic. She has the mic. Yeah.
My physician, who is a board-certified Harvard Medical School graduate.
School of what?
Harvard Medical School, very well, lots of knowledge, is extremely interested in integrative medicine. And she suggested that I use ashwagandha because it lowers cortisol levels. Is that true?
Ashwagandha meditation?
No, ashwagandha supplement.
Oh, no, I think it goes back to this. I've heard that. I've heard that like turmeric is good for this. And you don't, ashwagandha may lower cortisol, and that's important, and exercise may do this. You want to do ashwagandha and meditate and exercise. And I'm living proof. I'm a busy guy. I run this foundation and travel all over the place, and I meditate 20 minutes twice a day. I do it on an airplane. I do it in a car if someone else is driving. That's a caveat. That's one of those. It's in the small print, and I do it at home, and I love it. First thing in the morning you just set your alarm 20 minutes earlier. It's you think, oh God, sure, I don't get enough sleep as it is. 20 minutes more, but you do, because it's better than sleep. It doesn't take the place of sleep, but it's better than sleep for recharging. And then the evening before, I look at my calendar, I say, well, where am I going to get my 20 minutes in the end of the day? And sometimes it's complicated, but I do the best I can. It's not like, oh God, I didn't do my afternoon meditation. We get enough guilt in life. You do the best you can, okay? Okay, and then this woman up here has a question. So the mic comes up here after. Yeah.
I was very interested in Transcendental Meditation and took the orientation and was very impressed with it and was going to sign up for it. But why does it cost over $900?
For people who, because one reason is, and I think mindfulness-based stress reduction costs close to getting up there too. You have the support of a certified, like a board-certified teacher who spends as much time with you personally as you need to get it. And not just for the 4 days, but for your whole life. But like any educational program or educational program, there are grants and scholarships and loans for people who can't afford it. We never want to turn anyone away. And that's for a working adult. A child is $300. So there's a whole range. And the David Lynch Foundation, as I said, has given it away to 500,000 people. And one other thing, I work with some of the banks in New York, and we charge that amount of money. And they say, well, why do you charge so much money? And I said, we have a policy. You pay to meditate, a veteran learns for free. And the guy said, well, what if we don't want to pay that extra? Then I say, I'm not teaching you. You know, I can do what I want. And then they do it. So I want this to be, I want it to just be, this is like, and then it'll be yours. This is just me speaking from my heart. There's serious problems in the world, mental health problems, everything serious problems. The word meditation has been such a stumbling block, just the word meditation. Is it a religion? Is it a cult? Let's just be honest. Is it a philosophy? Is it something weird? And it's proper meditation, legitimate meditation, is none of that. You don't buy into anything. There's no shtick. There's no, I tell people I am the least likely meditation teacher you will ever meet if you think of what a meditation teacher would be like. I'm not into woo-woo. I'm a skeptic about a lot of stuff. I'm a cynic about a lot of stuff. I love science. I love sports. I love, you know, I'm a normal, regular guy. And that's what I love about this, is that there's nothing to believe in. I love it. Usually it's a wife learns to meditate, and then they say, well, I'm going to bring my husband in, but he's really skeptical. And I say, bring him on. Because being skeptical is like saying, I 100%, the core of my being, do not believe in gravity. Whoa, I don't believe in gravity. It doesn't matter. We're hardwired for it. Yes? Here's a mic. And I have, I think, 10 more minutes?
After watching your video with the children in the school, which was very impressive, I'm just wondering how you teach the children and the teachers.
Same way.
When you were talking about one-on-one, individual.
First day, it's
how do
great.
you do that?
There's another thing I love. We go into a school with 1,000 kids, and I bring in 20 teachers, TM teachers, and they're often in their 20s or 30s. They're really wanting to do something good in the world, and we teach them. What happens is the first day it's one-to-one, and then the next, because it's 4 days for about an hour. So day 1, one-to-one for the trained teacher, and day 2, 3, and 4 in a group. And we teach that 10-year-old inner city school kid exactly the same way I teach a CEO of a bank. We don't shortchange nobody. That child gets the exact same, and if it takes a little longer to do it, and people will say, well, that's not scalable, because how you're going to get to how many teachers? And my feeling is, in not too long, guidance counselors will be trained as TM teachers. And therapists on VA, it's another skill. It's just another skill. It's not a lifestyle, it's a tool. Okay, right here and then here. These are great questions, by the way.
Can you tell me
What are the results of TM in treating addiction-based behaviors? I have a family member who is just in rehab for the 4th time.
Oh, for addiction and recovery, did you say?
Right,
Yeah.
addiction-based behaviors.
We are now working in New York City with it's a wonderful question. There's been research that has shown the effectiveness of this for addiction and also for preventing a relapse from addiction. And right now there's a $300,000 study going on in Maryland with at a top rehab facility on the effects of this meditation on addiction and recovery and preventing relapse. And there's an organization, you can look it up, called Freedom Institute in New York City, which is not working with at-risk inner city kids, but just suburban kids. And one of the things that they find is addiction traumatizes the brain, scars the brain. And now we have neural pathways, and if Lori would have allowed me, I'd be showing you a chart right now. But Lori wouldn't allow me. Neural pathways that just keep reinforcing that desire for drugs or alcohol. And one of the abstinence approach is you take that child or teenager or adult away from his or her environment, send them away for 28 days where there's no drugs, and now they're clean for 28 days. The big problem is nothing has fundamentally changed in the way their brain is functioning, and they go back and then they relapse. So the beautiful thing about meditations in general, and I speak about the one I teach, but meditations in general, is by strengthening the connections between the front of the brain, the frontal lobes, and the back of the brain, by allowing all the different parts of your brain to communicate. Everything good about the brain depends upon all the parts of the brain communicating. Left and right hemisphere, front and back. And stress rips those connections apart. Drugs rip those connections apart. Anxiety, insomnia, trauma. And so, to answer your question now, when we meditate, whatever we do, and I just know about TM, when the mind settles down, the brain starts, the connections are reestablished, and here's a last word for you, neuroplasticity. You heard of that? You give the brain, so when the brain has that experience in meditation, it lasts out of meditation, and it overrides that desire, that destructive desire for drugs. So it's very, very beneficial. And you be careful about the questions because I just go on and on and on. Yeah.
I'm curious about, for the uninitiated into TM, that kind of 4-hour process of training. Would you say there is an average amount of time that the average person where it kind of clicks? Or would you say it's individual per person, or how difficult it is to get there?
This is going to sound completely ridiculous, and it's going to undermine whatever confidence you had in my word. I have taught thousands of people to meditate. There are thousands of, and every single person I have taught within the 4 days has that experience of transcending. It is not an acquired skill. It's like the house, the room is all wired for electricity, and we learn how to turn on the switch. It's not like, okay, I have not a musical bone in my body, and now I'm going to learn to play violin with my left hand. That's going to take a long time. I can do a good jump shot in basketball. But, so everyone can do it. I teach children on the nonverbal autism spectrum. If there's time, I'll tell you about another story with Joey. So yeah, and I'm not hyping you. If there was more time, I could go into the reason for it, but it's because we're hardwired. Everything's in place. And it doesn't require belief, and it doesn't require anything. We just have to. Someone one time said to me, well, if this thing is so effortless, because TM is effortless, why does it take 4 days? I tell this to New Yorkers. I say, we're New Yorkers. We don't know effortless. We don't know effortless. What is effortless? You ever been to New York? Actually, yeah. So it just takes a little while to reassure. Yes. Okay, 2. And I'm technically, 5 minutes remaining.
Over here.
Okay, good, yes.
Okay, in the choice of a sound.
Ask me a question about mindfulness. Okay.
For mindfulness.
Okay, good.
Okay, when you choose a sound for someone, and for the sound you choose for someone, is it for you when you choose that for someone else?
Okay, when a person selects a mantra.
Is it intuitively for you to help them, or how does that work?
Very good question. When you select a mantra, and I should say that the mantras, it could sound a little mystical, you know. Ooh, a mantra. It's just a sound. It's nothing, it's a sound that's nice, that has no meaning, that people have been using for thousands of years for just this purpose, and there's a boatload of, that's not a technical term, a boatload of research that shows it works. But there's not 7 billion mantras in this tradition. This meditation is ancient. There's many, many dozens, and a teacher learns how to select from those dozens the best one for you. Somebody said to me, well, couldn't I pick my own mantra? And I say, it's a free country. You can do whatever you want. We just know from research that these work. But it's not an intuitive, I guess an analogy would be, everybody has red blood, but a specialist knows that one person is Rh negative type, another is type O, another is type A. But again, the mantra is just half of it. How to use it properly, that's what takes the time. It takes a second to give the mantra, but it takes those days to how to use it properly. I want to say something wonderful about prevention, but yes.
Oh.
It says 5 minutes for the last 10 minutes. How much?
I'm a healthcare practitioner in functional medicine, so we spend 75-minute intakes and 45-minute follow-ups knowing you can't do...
I couldn't hear. 75?
75-minute initial intakes, knowing that you can't do much in 15 minutes. But what are good clinical tools? So if we work with food as medicine, I can at least start with the biggest culprits. You know, remove gluten, remove high fructose corn syrup, remove these elements.
Closer.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
What are some general tools that we can give patients that are the basic elements, or the
basic
10, 15-minute elements? With diet, we can pull gluten out. We can pull
Exactly right.
pro-inflammatory things. What can we do?
So there is, and again, you go online, but there are just some fundamental tools that anyone can do for this mindfulness approach, where you sit and you close you sit and you close your eyes and you put your feet flat on the ground, and just even for 2 minutes, you just watch your breath. Your eyes are closed, you just watch your breath. That has a very calming effect. There's another thing that I'm going to show you in just a minute, which is a pulse meditation, which you can sort of do when no one knows it. Just got your hand like this. There's different tools, and I would advise you to go online, and those are more coping tools. They don't, the research say they're very effective for coping. They don't give that deep rest that we're talking about, but they're a good stopgap. So just, you'll see, there's a lot, mindfulness tools. Yes? Oh, was there?
Hello. I want to thank you for your work with the veterans, but I have a question about that. Since you have been to some of the VA facilities, are all VA facilities now able to take veterans and teach them these skills?
More and more are doing that. You ever heard of the foundation Wounded Warrior Project? Yes. They've given us hundreds of, yeah, they're great. They've given us hundreds of thousands of dollars to teach thousands of veterans. It's in different cities. But if you have a veteran, David Lynch Foundation pays for any veteran to learn for free. So if you have someone in your life, I'm now going to give you my email address. bob@davidlynchfoundation.org. And you can email me if you have someone that you would like, because my father was an injured war veteran from World War II. I grew up in VA hospitals. Anything I can do for our veterans. And another group, first responders. Yeah. Pardon? Yeah. Okay, one more question?
Back here. I'm
way
back
here.
Yeah. Hi, I promise I'm not an implant. I've never met you before in my life. But I happened to come to this convention, and I have been practicing TM since I was 5 years old. My mother's a teacher, and I always thought
this is pretty plant sounding.
Yeah, it really does, I promise. I've never met you.
And just wanted to let everybody know that I'm a certified clinical nutritionist. I'm a certified clinical master herbalist. I work for a natural health company. And I consistently say that the best thing that's ever happened in my life is learning TM. Completely effortless. The way that I think about it is where it used to be stoplights and red lights in my life, it makes everything a green light. It's just the most amazing thing. Really calms you down, and highly recommend it. Definitely worth the price. I lost my mom for 3 months twice to learn to be a teacher. They're very highly trained and highly specialized people that do this. So I'm not sure if anybody else practices TM in here, but I figured I would give my testimonial because it's really amazing.
Thank you very, very much. I'm going to be in San Diego in 3 days. Can you come? No, thank you very much. Thank you. And again, I want to go back because I never like it if people make something sound like, well, this is, it's true what you said. And that's what, it's like, that's what this medicine does for this, but another medicine can help for something else. So we're looking here non-denominationally at different approaches for different outcomes. And for what you're talking about, TM is great. For middle of the day coping skills, we learn something else. So really great. I just want to end by saying, we're going to do this pulse thing, but the last thing I want to say is, a very wise man one time told me that the two fundamentals of success, once you have an idea that resonates at the core of your being, the two fundamentals of success are 1, conviction, and 2, persistence. And conviction for me is a vertical thing. It's like to the core of my being. And it can be in anything. It can be you have conviction in a relationship and you're just going to go through this. It can be a conviction in starting a job. But conviction is something that's just at the core of your being. And persistence, horizontal, over time. Over time. Some people have conviction and then just flame out after 2 days. Some people have a whole lot of, persistence, but it's not deep. And the reason I say this is I really believe I've looked over your schedule for tomorrow. We have here some amazing people coming to speak. This has been an amazingly curated event. And yeah. And you have the essence of lifetimes, years and years and years of these devoted people, what they're going to share with you. If it resonates with you, leave here with with conviction and persistence to make it part of your life. You can transform your life. Really, the information here, when I was an 18-year-old kid, it just resonated. And I've been at this, a long time. I'm not a weird guy. Well, some people might think. But I just would say conviction and persistence, take advantage to everything you're hearing, listen carefully, ask questions. And my friend Dean Drazen in the back, probably the best PR guy in the world, he said for me to tell you, when you leave here, if you have New Year's resolutions, you're going to be able to upgrade them at the end of this day. So I really want to thank Prevention. York, and I sat down there was a wedding, and I was in Iowa, and I sat down at this table. No one was at the table at this afterwards at a wedding, and there was a woman sitting at the table across from me. I sat down. She looked up. She said, "Are you from New York?" Now, I had not said a word. I went, it was like a. So, the problem is worse than ever, and the third reason why there's so much interest and the misunderstandings of meditation is stripped away. One reason, science. One reason, science. There is so much research now on the effects of different meditations, and they have different outcomes, and I'm going to talk about that in a moment. So much evidence that it is incontrovertible. And I think it's just now a matter of time. We're working with insurance companies, we're working with health insurance providers and companies to make this available to employees, to people. It'll save a ton of money and it'll improve the quality of life. So, end of my talk, the notion of meditating regularly, I want to move it to the forefront because we live in an epidemic of stress. Toxic stress, trauma, little kids 10 years old coming to school, some with the same symptoms of post-traumatic stress as veterans. I don't sort of have to go through what stress does, but it destroys life. I mean, I've been teaching meditation for 45 years, and it's the last year or 2 years, some tipping point tipped. Meditation was pretty strange. And now, doctors recommend it, it's at hospitals, we do programs in businesses, I'm working with the National Basketball Association, with the Major League Baseball. Probably I should work with the Rangers and the Astros, but that's another story. Something happened. Something tipped. And there's 3 reasons, I think. The problem with stress, as I just said, we now know how destructive it is. Uncle Bob, you can't get away. So there is this stress, and second of the 3 reasons, modern medicine has nothing for us. Not really. There's no magic pill that we can take that can prevent stress or trauma. I mean, if we had that, we'd give it to the men and women who are going off in harm's way. There's nothing. And there's no magic pill that we can take to cure it. We certainly mask it. 6 glasses of wine, 16 cups of coffee, and we manage it, Ambien, Xanax, antihypertensive medications, which we need, but we're not getting to the core. This is an epidemic, and it ain't getting any better. Anybody here ever feel stressed? Yeah. Even in Austin? I'm coming from New York. I have to tell you a quick story. I was coming from New York. First of all, how many of you here try to eat pretty well? And how many of you here try to eat pretty well on a regular basis? And how many of you here exercise? And how many of you here exercise on a pretty regular basis? Now, how many of you here meditate? And how many of you here meditate twice a day? That's why I'm talking. That's exactly why I'm talking. Because, and what I'm going to do, the scenario we're going to do is, I'm going to talk about meditation in general. Nobody really knows what meditation is. Well, I jog or I do this, that's meditation. It's a big word. It's like saying I eat food or I take medicine. I meditate. So we're going to define what science tells us about meditation. It turns out there's 3 basic types of meditation. So we're going to do that. But before that, I want to talk about why at the end of this few days and at the end, we used to think, and I was first of all, when I was a kid, we didn't even think of stress. I mean, I went and talked to some 2nd graders, and I said, just recently, I said, how many of you kids feel stressed? Every hand went up. Stress, 2nd graders. And they can't sleep, and they feel anxious, and they can't digest their food. I'm thinking, oh my God. And when I was young, stress, you just, buck up. Buck up, I said. Buck up. Like be tough. It's not a big deal. Just, And, but now, it's killing us. It shortens our aging. It gives us migraines. It gives us, sleep deprivation. It gives us high blood pressure. It fuels cancer. You've heard it all. It's like I don't have to spend time on that. So the problem of stress, I think, sometimes people say, well, is it more stress now than it ever was before? And I think, yeah. I think it's 24/7 input, right? Kids never stop. It's just 24/7. There's nowhere you can go away. I made a phone call to my nephew who was hiking in Mongolia, and I got a clear message to him. So you can't get away from